Good morning and welcome to Freetalk with MrB. I'm so glad to have you all on. We've been having some engaging conversations, and our team here, with our moderator Sameena, is going to be taking over just in a moment. We've taken the book, The Art of Giving Back, and take a look at its nuggets of giving back styles and start to talk about them. We covered humility. We covered what spouses give to the world. We even talked about what's the intent. Today, we bring up a subject about compliments and how compliments can go wrong. Sameena, all you, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. B. And a very good evening and good morning to all our viewers across the world. Thank you once again for joining us with Ms. Mia, Ms. Dedra, as well as Mr. B and myself. So like Mr. B mentioned, we're going to start off talking about this very interesting topic, when can compliments go wrong? So before I get into it, in Mr. B's book, like you mentioned, he's written a nugget which describes a little bit about, what a compliment, when we say something, a compliment in a certain culture may be understood in a certain way. So it's very, very important. And let's hear from all of our speakers today. And just to give my perspective, I think when anybody's complimenting another person, it should be very, very genuine, one, and it should be consistent, and it should be really authentic, that I am complimenting somebody because I want this person to know that such and such a thing is good, such and such a quality is good in that person, not because I just want to get my way with that person or whatever it is. So that's the negative part of it. Compliments could go wrong at many times. I have sometimes experienced this myself, where people did not mean it genuinely, but then they just want to make me feel that, okay, fine, I'm important. But then it shows in the actions. I always believe and strongly believe in the saying, actions speak louder than words. So that's a little bit about my perspective on this. So first of all, I would like to invite Professor Mia to share her comments on this topic. When do you think compliments can go wrong, and how do you think people need to compliment anyone they wish to?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Hello to everyone. Thank you, Mr. B, and thank you to everyone for being here. It's an amazing topic and an amazing nugget to have to discuss, because the key things for me regarding compliments is exactly what you've just said, the genuineness and authenticity behind an actual compliment. But one of my key factors regarding compliments is our perception. Because somebody is giving you a compliment, how you perceive that compliment so relate to how you will react to it. So one might not necessarily know what the intention behind the compliment is, but you, in your version of, in your trueness of yourself, will know, do I trust this compliment enough to make it have an effect on me, or do I just brush it off? And I say this because, yes, I've also experienced it where people just, follow the herd of, oh, you look good today. Oh, well done on your certificate. Well done on this and well done on that. But they actually don't really mean that. It's just because other people are saying it. You just genuinely decide from your intuition, who do you trust it with a compliment because it's genuine and you really feel that that is something warm, or is it something that you will just brush off because you perceive it as, oh, you know what, I don't really trust what your compliment means. Because remember, many a time, a compliment can be agenda-based. Somebody would give a compliment purely because they have an intention behind why they want to give the compliment. And that, of course, will base, your reaction, like I said, is based on your perception of it. And if somebody knows you well enough, the compliment will be based on what they can get out of it. So for me, key factor for perception of a compliment based on your reaction. That's the important part of compliments for me.
Yes, completely agree with that. Ms. Dedra, what do you have to say about compliments?
Well, I have a slightly different take on it. I mean, what you said is true. You do have to kind of always take things with a little bit of a grain of salt, but you also kind of have to be really, I don't know. I mean, it's important to just say thank you, when someone compliments you, and just sort of, it's always something that should be made light of, I mean, I don't think that, I think that, yes, how am I'm trying to put this in a way and I'm having trouble, I'm stumbling right now, but compliments are very sensitive. I mean, they can be nourishment, they can be medicine, but they can also be poison, and they can be a very addictive drug as well. I mean, and you really have to think about how you're using them, for one thing, and think about yourself, whether or not, are you affected in a way when someone compliments you? Do you become hungry for more of that? Do you feel starving, to feel more of that? Now, I come from a perspective of being raised by a very extremely narcissistic father, who starved me. I mean, he starved me for compliments when I was a little girl. He used to say things like, well, you better make it in this world on your brains because you're going nowhere on your looks. I mean, does daddy say that to his little girl, his only little girl? I mean, all other little girls were getting treated so special by their fathers, but that's the kind of thing my father used to say to me. So I think it's kind of thing you have to be careful of, because children need compliments it's like nourishment for them. Children don't just need food and water and shelter and faith to grow, in a healthy way. They actually need praise. They need this also. It's like watering, a plant. You have to grow. They actually need that, because if they don't get that at an early age, they will not grow well. In that way, they'll be extremely deficient. It's like being vitamin deficient, or something. You can become compliment deficient, and which will lead to a very low self-esteem, I think. And it took me a large part of my adult life, to learn how to do that for myself. And I think you have to engage in self-affirmation. I've recently picked up on the power of self-affirmation. And, where you spend a few minutes, it's very easy, every single day, you look at yourself in the mirror and you tell yourself the positive things you need to hear. You tell yourself that. You say, you're beautiful, you're smart, you are amazing, you're loved, and you're enough. Just the way you are. You're special exactly the way you are. You don't need to change anything. It's amazing how that rewires your brain, and then when somebody gives you a compliment, agenda or not, you can just say, wow, thanks, because you don't actually need anymore. You can just say thank you for the one without expecting again, because you have what you need in yourself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think first up, I want to say that you are a very, very bold and courageous girl, woman, and lady, as I see you. And you have really reaffirmed in yourself, and you have really believed in yourself. You have the confidence. And mashallah, you are, I think, very, very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I genuinely mean this, because I really don't want to just give you the compliment, but from the first time when we have got on to knowing each other, I think I really admired your features. It's so very genuine.
So much that it warms my heart, and I can literally just feel it and say thank you and feel genuinely grateful, for what you just said.
Nothing matters. Nothing else matters. And as for your beauty, it comes from within. It's coming from within, because it's the kind of personality, it's the kind of the clean heart which you have is reflecting on your face.
And back at you, babe. I mean, same back to you. You're a pretty awesome, sweetheart yourself. And, I mean, I think we could go around the table here and, give each other the compliments we need. I think there's a bunch of clear-hearted people around this forum, and you are all so awesome and great. I feel incredible just being a part of you, honestly.
Thank you so much. Yes, Mr. B was saying something and we did not allow it.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the show, that we can practice what we're actually preaching. The reason why we went over this nugget, like some of our listeners may wonder, why are we talking about compliments when we're talking about the art of giving back? Well, it's one of the fundamental, simple things that we can give back. Like we said, give back a smile, give back a greeting. But a compliment is something that we do regularly and often as a way of giving back. And we're practicing it on this very program. In the book, in nugget number 4, yes, nugget number 4. Well, I wrote in the book, says, while in my 20s, I encourage a teenage girl by telling them, you are a big girl now. As a giving back compliment, I did that. In my upbringing culture, it meant that the young person has grown to the extent that they are no longer a child, no longer a kid, but a responsible young adult. But in some cultures, if I told the person you are a big girl now, it could be me telling them they're getting fat. And it's not a very complimentary.
Yes.
And so the reason I brought it up is because it was an example of how compliments can go wrong. And as we're trying to give back, it allows us then, as we spoke about humility, to correct our course. When we are with people of different cultures or different genders or different persuasions, we can be cautious as how we communicate our giving back. How we give back is important, and it's important to do it properly or the best way we can.
Yes, completely agree with that. Yes. Professor Mia, you were saying something?
Yes, I was going to say that is exactly the approach that I took earlier when I said perception is key, because Mr. B has just put it. He said the same thing, but perception of both can either create one or the other reaction. So it's very, very important how those words are perceived. And as for Sister Dedra, you know what? I think your beauty reigns just through and through continuously. And I just salute the fact that you were able to grow literally within yourself from whatever Dad might have said to become the most beautiful version of who you need to be. And that is self-growth. So that's development. That's self-complementing. And the compliment then is actually in you that you are now able to have this of giving back through who you are. That's a compliment in itself. So who each one of us is the compliment, and how we give back is not necessarily just in word version, but in how we actually behave in your actions. So I just love the conversation. I love it.
Yes.
I think that I get I'm sorry, Sameena, I cut you off.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I get what you're saying, Mr. B. Here in the Middle Eastern culture, for example, I mean, we have to be a little careful about the rules, for giving compliments, like for taking into consideration religious beliefs and also cultural beliefs. I mean, I get that. I can only speak to the UAE culture and the American culture because that's where I have experience. But I think that here in the UAE, we're so culturally blended that, because so many nationalities are living here in this small space, that people get it when somebody breaks, protocol a little bit, because they kind of understand, but in other places, you might want to say, for example, mashallah, before you say a compliment, about someone's children, I mean, if you say that little girl, oh, wow, you're a big girl now, or you're a smart girl, you might want to add mashallah, with it, because it's like a blessing, so that it protects against the evil eye. Right? Because it's just considered to be like a good manners thing, I suppose,
Yes, absolutely. And talking about compliments, I think it just comes naturally, or it's probably not naturally. It's just accepted in an environment of a corporate where maybe a manager has to compliment his subordinates, and then a teacher has to compliment the student, and then any profession for that matter, the seniors will compliment the subordinates. But in a family, I think many a times we are just taking things for granted. But I think it's very,
Right.
very important that we instill this attribute of, complimenting each other and thanking each other for whatever it is, for just being in the family. That's
Yes.
very, very important. And that's an important value of today's world, which is increasingly being lost. So I think compliments really, really need to be inculcated right from, like you guys already mentioned earlier, right from when the child is young, from that stage to whenever they're growing up.
Because if someone feels a strong sense of self-esteem, I mean, it's easy to see how just passing that along, like paying it forward, can make someone feel really good. I get what you're saying also, Mr. B, that it's one thing I actually really love doing, and I can tell you this is especially seeing a woman. I mean, I do this especially with women, as if you see someone struggling with their day, they look tired, or they're have a bunch of kids and they're sort of fighting, to get through, a shopping center or something. If you're standing in line with them and you find anything to compliment, literally anything, like, God, that color really brings out your eyes. I hope you don't mind me saying that to you. You're just so pretty, and I've seen people just light up. It's amazing. I mean, it's like a
Yeah.
light bulb, it's just that one little thing, it might have just changed their
Yeah.
mood for the entire day.
And it's a good point to be gracious with our compliments and not hold them back. This piece, and we can highlight two areas. Um, Sameena, you know the part on corporate responsibility and corporate priority, and why we could bring it back, because when we leave home, we still go into the workplace, and we can have
Yeah.
a pure heart of giving our compliments. But by the end of your session or the end of your evaluation, someone may tell you about things that you failed in, or you may get charged with a harassment at work or something like that, and not knowing you were using the genuinity in your heart and had your compliments go wrong by what you were telling someone else at work. So if a female was telling me, or myself was telling a female, I have to be cognizant of the fact, from a corporate responsibility, maybe from my
Mhm.
manager position or from a subordinate position, what to do. Whether it was compliment by giving a gift or compliment by words, we just had to be careful and think about it, because the art of giving back is such that we must give back to bring joy. There's way more joy in giving than in receiving. But when we give compliments, we need to be cautious about how it could go wrong in the workplace and other aspects of our lives.
Yes, we need to be ethically responsible for what we are saying. And I completely agree with you. For men and women working together in any organization, we need to be very, very sensitive and of the fact that how will the person in front of me take it, and from his culture's perspective, is it right for me to say something like that or whatever it is. Uh, Dubai is a great example of diverse cultures working in one country. The UAE itself. So we have people from different cultures with different dress codes. Even if we have to compliment somebody on their dressing, it really needs to be simply, it needs to be clear in our mind that yes, we are complimenting this person for how he or she is looking at that moment, with absolutely no discrimination in terms of, why are you so covered, and we know what's with your covering so much of your body. Nothing of all those sorts should really matter, and then it should just be a straight compliment. And I think we really need to take time to understand cultures. It's a very interesting subject.
It
We can
is.
do a lot of thing, yes.
Once my son went my three sons actually take after my trait of having a very large head, a very large head size. And when my first son was born, we had a couple of Chinese friends at that time, really good friends of ours, and the guy said, "Oh wow, he has very big brain, big head." And for me, I mean, you could take that either way, like, but then when you really understand where he's
Mhm.
coming from, that's a huge compliment. That means he's very, very smart. Having a large head is a good thing. evidently in Chinese culture. So, I mean, but it was very good that he said that to me, someone who would have thought about it for a second before reacting. Right. Maybe another person might have gotten angry and said, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? Yeah.
Yes, I can definitely understand. And I would pass it on to Mr. B to tell us a little bit about, throughout his book, I keep reading that how much of care he takes to ensure that his better half is really understanding and complimenting, and, that really has to be there in the relationship. So, Mr. B, what do you have to say about it? Because I keep reading in your book that, you really make a lot of effort to ensure that it happens from both sides.
Well, I do this. I redirect because I wanted Mia, Mehreen, to tell us something about an interesting cultural mix in South Africa. And
Yes.
I'm curious about that because I visited Johannesburg, and understanding the difference between the Zulu, Xhosa, Portuguese, English, and so on. How have we seen some compliments going wrong? Are you there, Mia?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, here we have quite a few cultures, diverse cultures, yes, but multinational groups. So if you had to sit in a specific restaurant, for example, you will probably have every table have different nationality or different person from around the world. And most often, even the garb I'm wearing now is still not totally accepted. Lots of, for example, our Zulu sisters would come through wearing what they feel is traditional garb. It's still not totally accepted out in public. So when you are doing your traditional garb and you're doing it within your traditional arena, it's fully acceptable. But when you have to join forces and you're mixing or mingling, and all of a sudden you're wearing the traditional garb, it's an eyesore or it's an eyesight for someone. So everyone here is still trying to grapple with, I need to really respect you for where you're coming from. So when the compliments come through, and I, for one, I love giving them because I love the diversity, and I work a lot with different women from different cultures here on most of my platforms. So it's not necessarily Black women only on an African platform. We have white women, colored women, African women, people from across the world come through on different forms. But what we find is it's just taken almost with the hint of, are you genuine with what you're saying? Because it's so questioned all the time that when you're giving it genuinely, even your genuineness is being questioned. So when I meet somebody who is in a specific way at one of my platforms or one of my workshops, for example, I would be like, wow, because it's traditional. It's what they wear. It's full of color. It's full of color in the hat and the way the hat is tied. And you have somebody else who comes through different version of an African tribe wearing a different kind of a garb or different kind of a turban. How it's tied is differently. Yet a little exposure of the body is there. But that is not something that's degradation for them. It's how they are culturally. That here is still questionable, is still not accepted. So when I would go and say, wow, I love these colors and I love your traditional garb, for many, it's, how can you say that? Look at what that, oh my God, no, I wouldn't say something like that. But that's you and I'm me and I'm accepting of this. So here, the compliments and go wrong. And of course, women of different sizes still trying to keep and maintain and wear that might necessarily fit into the size, but want to keep with the tradition. So their reasoning trying to wear and accommodate the tradition is theirs. It's theirs, and you have to respect it. But here you have one or two that might actually come forth and say, well, this shouldn't be worn in public because of A, B, and C. So you have, on the one hand, you have the basic human right of, yes, I have my freedom to wear what I need to practice what I need to. And when I give off a compliment, I'm giving it genuinely to somebody. And on the other, you have society and its norms about what they think should be and ought not to be. So the compliment goes haywire. So yes, it's all about how we actually need to perceive each other and really just respect each other for where we be. If I find something complimentary and I say it, it's my prerogative to be able to say that to someone. So yeah, there's multi differences here.
And so, Sameena, I wasn't trying to avoid a question because I know we will have a limited amount of time on this particular podcast.
Okay.
And I look forward to taking that question again as we do the follow-up and feedback podcast next week. But one of the things I can say at the time is that's an example of what I do. I try to make sure others are highlighted. And it's interesting, a lot of compliments can go wrong. We were in the middle of the pandemic for the past couple of years, and we noticed how many people's eyes became way more beautiful than before. Because that's all we could notice, right?
Exactly.
But so I'm very, very glad to have you all on here because I wanted to highlight something as beautiful as eyes, where it's the gateway to who we really are, and you're all covered. And so in that sense, I see beauty in the conversation. I see beauty in giving back. And all we're trying to do, and we look forward to the feedback from everyone, no doubt, is to take up again next week the opportunity to get the feedback and continue this conversation on how compliments can go wrong. So I'm so glad we can talk about how it can go right, but we'll get some feedback and we'll continue next week. What do you think, Sameena?
Sure, definitely. And we can also add in a little bit about criticisms on how, some compliment can actually be taken as criticism.
It's very
That
nice.
will be a definite thing to take up next episode.
Yes. So I try to be timekeeper. Dedra, what do you think?
I think that I agree with everything. I think Professor Mia's, I'm just fascinated by your description of your experiences, seeing the different types of people in your work. I mean, a photo album would be amazing if you've got some page where somebody can actually look at what you've had a chance to experience. I for one I'm fascinated by your work, honestly.
And that's a good point. What we can do when someone has something you want to show, I can hand over the hosting while recording, I'm not sure. And we can show something, or we can send it to me in advance and I'll try and show it from this end. So we feel free to do that, yeah. And also with this program, it's all of our program. So our listeners are part of the program. So listeners, I just want to let you know directly, if you have something you want to share on this, feel free to contact any of us. Get on our Facebook, get on our Instagram, Freetalk with MrB. You can get on Instagram with Dedra, Sameena, Mia, and you can just communicate and then make arrangements to come on the program. We'd like to hear from you because we are Free Talk. We are Free Talk with MrB and Free Talk with all of you, and I really, really appreciate. Look forward to seeing you. We definitely say we have the book, and we will continue to speak on the nuggets of the art of giving back. And we'll continue to highlight those giving back nuggets. And I really, really appreciate you. We had a very wonderful session today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all the three of you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
God bless you, and thank you for being available for this program. See you next week, and we'll continue to discuss this very subject. How compliments go right and wrong, and add in a little bit of, what's the term, Sameena?
Criticism.
Add in a little bit of criticism, how criticisms are right and how they can go wrong. Okay, thank you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.